Hey everyone, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 569 being recorded Wednesday, December 18th, 2019. Now, we have a very special guest this episode. Jeremy is on vacation, and so we had someone fill in for him. You may know him as Dr.
No. It's Kate Hewlett.
Is
better looking Hewlett.
Yeah, that's right. We couldn't get the better looking Hewlett, so we went with David Hewlett instead.
Gotcha. Well, yes, you may know him from as Dr. Rodney McKay on the Stargate franchise, or as architect David Worth from the 1997 cult hit Cube. One of my favorite movies.
Did you watch Cube?
I did. Yeah, it's, on cable TV the first time many years ago, but picked up
amazing little film.
Great film.
Dude, you made it on Murdoch Mysteries as well.
Well, I didn't make it for long, though, did I?
Oh, well, I haven't watched it, so please don't ruin it.
Never mind, then. No spoilers.
And I must say, too, as I was trying to tell my wife this evening as we were getting ready, and I told her who was coming on, and as she put it, it's that guy from Hewlett-Packard. It's exactly Mr. David Hewlett.
Yeah, so, I'm glad I could be a great disappointment to everybody.
You two are worth billions of dollars. Congratulations.
I'm surprised Jim didn't say, hey, it's that guy who was on season 3 of Shining Time Station with the George Carlin era.
That was her second guess. That was her second
guess. Was it George then or was it Ringo? I think it was Ringo, wasn't it?
I don't know. I'm basing this on IMDb research, so I could be wrong.
Very good. Yeah, no, I can't remember. I think we never actually worked with them, so it was always, he's very small.
I imagine the conductor stuff was all like blue screen, green screen stuff.
Yeah, if they even had blue screens or green screens back then. I don't even know. They may have just hired very small Ringo stars at that point. Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Oh man, well, we're glad you could all join us. This is probably our last official podcast for the year because of Christmas next week and then New Year's. We may still have something recorded for you at some point next week, but to make sure you don't miss a live show, please go to pcpro.com/subscribe, join our mailing list, and we let you know about an hour or so before we go live with these kind of events, because you don't want to miss the live version. I'm going to edit all the fun stuff out of the final show.
It's true.
But again, we're glad you could join us. Let's jump into the show here because we don't want to take too much of David's time. He's a very, very busy man.
Oh, I'm so busy. I call and beg you to have me on the show. That's how busy I am.
And he's starting to suffer from poor judgment too, because he wanted to be here.
Too much time in my basement alone.
So let's jump in and talk. I know you had some stuff you wanted to talk about. You're involved in an organization called the Tech Bandits, right?
Yes, the organization is a very kind way of putting it. It's basically, I started a tech club, basically to try to get my kid into technology and engineering and science, math, all that kind of stuff. He had sort of shown no interest in that, and he wanted to do PC gaming, so I said, you got to build a PC. So we built a PC, and by we, I mean he would come down every so often and go is it done yet? But kids from around the neighborhood would sort of stop in and go Baz is a liar. I'd be like, oh God, what has my son done now? And they'd be like, he said he's building a PC, and that can't be true. And so I'd actually, I'd bring him downstairs, I'd show him the thing. And I realized that so many of these kids had no idea that there was anything more than sort of a black box that played video games. So I started bringing old PCs in and having them pull it apart. And then they started building stuff. And I was doing some work on a documentary about people with sort of severe physical disabilities. So I started talking about that. They got very interested in that. So now I've started doing this sort of tech club that uses assistive tech to inspire kids to sort of get interested in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So that's my latest sort of passion right now, is basically getting to hang out with people about my IQ and interest level.
Holy cow! I remember that motherboard. Scroll up.
That was your motherboard. Yeah. That was
it's your motherboard. You earned that motherboard. Except, of course, I wasn't very smart with Canadian customs, and so it ended up costing you far more because it's a used computer part worth $1. And I should have said that instead of being honest.
This happens all the time. I'm convinced the Canadians are just on the lookout for me at this point. Where they're like, aha, Hewlett ordered something, or Hewlett's getting something. Nab him.
Let's charge him.
No, that was great. I forgot about that, Josh. You got us a whole bunch of stuff that was used to build. I'm not going to try to pick it up, but I put it in this great, I call it the Stormtrooper case. It's this beautiful. Actually, I should pick it up. Hang on a second. Let me go get it.
Sounds like that NZXT case.
Dun,
Oh, wow.
dun, da, da, da,
Isn't it?
da, 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 da.
And in true PC perspective fashion, I bought it for it having the most LEDs in it.
Of course.
Yeah, those are the specs. My specs were what has the most LEDs that blink, because I thought the kids would get a kick out of it. So that was what we ended up putting in. And a number of those kids for the first year are now like building their own PCs and bankrupting their families with upgraded GPUs and all sorts of stuff. So the assistive stuff this year is like the big focus. So I'm really kind of excited about that. And
how is Q doing these days? I haven't heard.
He's good. Yeah. I mean, there is an SMA. I haven't talked to him for ages, which I now feel guilty about. Thank you, Josh. Maybe you'd like to give me a nice little paper cut or lemon juice on it as well. That'd be great. But there's a treatment for SMA type 2, well, for type 1 that is supposedly available in Canada now. But because of the cost, it's being very limited in its scope. But she's quite eager to have that happen. And I've been talking to a channel here about trying to start working with people like Q, who are doing a lot of amazing stuff online. He's got this Cooking with Q show. So here's a guy who cannot move except for maybe like a little bit of movement in like one hand. And he does like a daily cooking show. He's constant, there's always new like content coming up. Just incredible guy, with this complete and utter obsession with sort of cooking inventions. Like it's not even just like normal cooking. It's like he's pushing the limits of all sorts of different areas of sort of culinary science. And we met because he sort of talked about becoming a cyborg and all this kind of stuff, which I got very sort of excited about, being a nerd. But his passion is really in the sort of the culinary world, and so he's gone from sort of wanting to become a cyborg to wanting a cyborg suite that allows him to film the stuff that he does. Because even the most simple things for us, even just tech support, is difficult because he can't move. So you just got to yell at people from his bed about try unplugging this and plugging it back in again, and so. But he's amazing.
Has he invested in that kitchen thing with the arms that?
We looked at that. Yeah. The problem is it's so limited, right? Like right now it's still very much sort of like almost like a gimmick at this point. It's pretty dexterous, but it's very specific in what it can do. So I think it's one of those things that I'm assuming we're at least 5-10 years away from that stuff actually being a valid way of cooking. And it's all being done by mimicking chefs. So the chefs they do motion capture, and the chefs go through and move all the stuff around. So I'm not even sure they've gone as far as having it, think on its own. So, but yeah, it's amazing. So that's the kind of thing that would happen is I'd be talking about this. Like kids would say, "What are you doing?" And I would say this, or and I talk about like the robotic kitchen and stuff. And they'd be like, "Oh my God, what about that?" And so I started bringing robotic arms in, and it's just amazing how a bunch of kids who had no interest in this stuff to start could get so far along to the point where they're actually building their own PCs, which I don't know how long they're going to be able to do that for. I mean, what's your sense on this stuff? Do you think we're going to be building PCs in 5 years' time? I mean,
oh yeah.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
In the same way old cars, or like what? I mean, because you don't need to anymore, do you?
No, I mean, we do have more integration into less silicon, but they're finding more and more software things that requires more silicon that can't be integrated in. And so, we're still going to have GPUs and CPUs. I mean, the Epic guy, Sweeney, he always said that, we're going to have this convergence where everything's going to be on the CPU. But he didn't really look far forward enough to see that, hey, ray tracing is something we can integrate in. That takes a lot of horsepower. And then we've also got, extreme physics, which can do a lot of stuff on the CPU. And suddenly we're 4 to 6 threads on a 8-thread CPU for a lot of these games. And then add on top of that higher end graphics, and we've got monitors that are running at 144 hertz and above that are now 2K to 4K, and it just requires
8K.
a lot of
the
memory.
film
And
industry's going 8K now.
Yeah, eventually, yeah. And so, I mean, it's all the different parts are pushing each other, and it's not this whole singularity of one piece of silicon that's going to do it all, because it can't. I mean, it's just memory, it's memory locality, it's transistors firing off. I mean, you can't make a 500 watt TDP chip and hope to cool it and do it effectively and get good yields, because the thing's going to be massive. So yeah, no, building PCs is going to be there for years and years and years.
Well, that's good, because I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. There's just I wasn't sure whether that was something that was going to continue.
It's Legos for adults and kids.
It is.
Hey,
obviously.
Are you guys forgetting that the Mac Pro just launched, and that's the end? Like this is the final PC that anyone will ever need. And
you know, if I'm
handle those
spending
8K streams
$50,000 on it with wheels,
so out of
it's got to be my last
it
PC.
drives me crazy. I was a huge Mac fan. I went from PC. I built my own PC from like the 8088s, 386s, 486s, the Pentium, and then I was like, screw this, I'm going to Mac. I'm sick of like too many things to figure out. And mainly because I started a web design company. We needed to be able to just do stuff, like instead of troubleshooting stuff all the time. So I switched to Mac. I thought, this is amazing, this is great. And then they went to OS X, and I was like, I guess they'll figure it out. And then now when they start releasing like unimaginably expensive computers that they haven't, I bought their freaking trash can. It's sitting up there, and it is literally a trash can. Terrible system. You know, I feel like somewhere there's someone laughing at me for buying that. Somewhere in Apple is like, you bought one of those? But I also have the Newton back here as well, I should add.
Oh, well, hey.
So
you got to pull that
might
out
actually be worth more.
sometime. So, you know, yeah.
No. So I've stopped being the early adopter now. I'm now going back. I'm now making the move back to PC. So, you know.
Well, I mean, people would as the defenders of the Mac Pro would say without hesitation, it's not meant for you, Mr. Writer, actor, director, geek. It's not meant for you. It's meant for YouTubers.
Right. It's the creators.
Isn't going a YouTuber pay for that?
No,
apparently.
Some of them can.
If you're the right,
like one or two of them.
Yeah. If you're MKBHD, then you got one pre-launch and the monitor.
Is that sound thing again?
No. That's Marquez Brownlee, who's probably at 10 million subscribers by now.
Yeah.
And I don't. Although, did Linus get one? I don't think Linus got one.
Well, he has them. I don't know if he bought them or was sampling.
Thinking like who are the top two tech YouTubers? Probably Linus and MKBHD.
Right.
But
it's funny because I haven't seen Linus. I haven't seen a video from Linus about it. So
I haven't either.
He's had some. He's tweeted some pictures of him.
Oh, okay.
In true clickbait.
It's like those concept cars. Like it feels like one of those like oh look, you can have it with or without diamonds. It doesn't. It doesn't seem like a technical innovation to me. It just feels like a like I don't know.
Because they use an Intel chip that's got still a decent amount of PCIe lanes. They have to use a PLX chip, which is it expands that out to many more lanes. It turns into a switch, and it's if they'd have used Threadripper, they probably wouldn't have had to. But
they weren't expecting that, were they? I mean
they probably knew all about Threadripper, with the latest silicon, but I just don't think that AMD can give them enough working dies, working chips that Apple requires to be able to be their primary supplier. And
I'd just be curious to how many of those they sell, because it's I feel like I'm feeling very trapped by the Apple. The Apple architecture now. Like I'm just like in general, between the iPhones and the, I can't use an Android because my son's, because the text won't work well with my son's iPhone.
Right.
I feel like I'm being trapped, which is a horrible feeling.
Yeah. It's a seductive world where you have family members who are on it. And then iMessage is very compelling because
it's great.
It pretty much works all the time now, and it works over Wi-Fi or any connection you have, and it works on an airplane. And you get onto an Android phone, and it becomes a little bit more complicated, and you're having to train. I lose when I have to train a family member. Like, okay, when I'm traveling and I don't have service, you can still contact me through this messaging app, but then they're all on iPhone. So it's like, why can't I just text you? It's not going through. Like, yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah. So they're not, you're trying to get them on WhatsApp and stuff? Is that?
Right. Yeah. Like I suggest alternatives if I'm going through a period of time where I'm on an Android phone, but then I invariably switch back just because my wife is on an Apple phone and other family members are on Apple devices, and it's just a lot easier. So,
hey, you know what? If you don't have a walled garden, you can't make the pretty flowers grow.
Well, but they used to. I would agree with that before. It used to be that way. I felt like with OS 9, I guess the last few years of the original operating system, that thing was bulletproof. I mean, it could do anything. I remember setting a day aside to install new software, and we were done in 15 minutes. I couldn't get over it. Coming from a PC world where you're constantly trying to figure stuff out back then. But since then, I find I still find myself doing a lot of troubleshooting now that I never used to do before, especially with this trash can, which I'm very resentful of that because I had to return 2 of them because of, there was, I think it was memory failure. There was some of I think it was some of the it was either the SD card or the memory. I can't remember. And one, and then the other one was something else. But literally 2 almost $6,000 computers sent back because they just didn't work.
And even now, money well spent.
Yeah.
Well, I just had to have my MacBook Pro replaced after only a year because the logic board died out of warranty, like by a month. And
I just don't feel like they're not as bulletproof as they used to be. I really don't think so.
Well, for me, the biggest surprise is when I got it back, because when Apple does a repair, they replace everything, and they had upgraded me to Catalina, and that's the latest version of Mac OS, and it is not good. It is sluggish.
And half your software doesn't run. That's the other thing.
Yeah, that was less of a problem for me because I kind of saw that coming. But there's just working with the OS, it's weird. It just doesn't feel right. Some things there's like weird pauses and just glitches. But
I was just so excited when they went to OS X. I thought, oh great, we got some real Unix in here. I've got my terminal back. I was all excited about it, and I feel like there's still potential there. I still, I think I've used it for so long now that I'm sure there will be a laptop or a desktop kicking around that's going to be Mac. But I'm making a concerted effort, somewhat painfully, to move back to Windows. Windows 10 is just a very different beast than the Windows that I left back in, whenever it was.
Yeah.
I have personal issues with Windows 10 just because when it launched, especially because there were issues about data collection and what exactly were they collecting and what was the telemetry that was going on, and the fact that they forced you into Windows Update on their schedule and not yours. And there were situations where you'd power on a machine and it would go through this seemingly endless update cycle before you could even use it. And some of that stuff has been addressed. But I will say I've watched on the Apple side where up to this latest version, Catalina, it's less and less open. It becomes more restrictive. They have more control over what you're allowed to do with your own operating system. They have done things like blocked previous versions of their own OS from being visible. Or like I own them. They used to be in my digital library. I can no longer see them because they don't want me downloading them anymore. So they just things like that. Like, how they won't sign code for previous iOS versions anymore, so you can't downgrade your iPhone. They're starting to do that with the operating system, which feels weird.
They're also fighting in court to stop us being able to fix our own phones and Macs. I mean, they're actively working against this, which is, so I feel like the whole culture of it has changed so much.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of that started on the phone side where, I kind of understood that the fingerprint sensor was kind of tied to that motherboard in such a way that they wanted you to be an authorized service center to be able to work on the phone. And there were workarounds for it, but pretty much the only way to work around was to take the old part and put it in the repaired phone. And now there are similar issues with Face ID, where if you use the camera unlock system, you can't just swap the screen out with the third-party screen. You've got to have theirs. And again, they want you to use their authorized repair facilities and not do it yourself. And you can end up with a phone that doesn't work properly if you just try to fix it at home. So
heaven forbid something might not work.
right.
Don't play
Heaven
with it.
forbid you break a glass screen, and then because you're, fairly competent and good with a screwdriver, you just want to replace it yourself, save some money, and then you have a phone that won't unlock anymore, and you've got to send it off to Apple and pay them $120 to repair the screen.
But I mean, this is why it really alarmed me to hear kids talking about computers or gaming computers as if they were just black boxes with game controllers stuck to them. That they had no sense that there were different parts of it. They had no sense that you could build these things. They had no sense that they were repairable. Like, I mean, I think they're growing up in a time when we're supposed to just toss stuff away, which again, I mean, I get it. Some of this stuff is just so integrated that it really is. It's trashed if you break it. But there's still a lot. I mean, I still hold the PC. I'm glad to hear Josh saying that we'll still be building our PCs, because I do think it's important, I think, to have at least a sense of how these things work. I mean, I don't have to know exactly how a car works, but you want to at least understand that you put gas in it and it's running on the gas, and just certain elements of the car that just the general sense of it at least. Whereas most of the kids I was dealing with had none at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, my son's 7, and he was born into the iPad world. It was already a thing, and as a I'm a terrible parent, so I just would put an iPad in front of him as a toddler, and he would just that was it. Like, that's all he knew, and it goes beyond just like having this black box that just works, but things like commercials on TV.
Yeah.
When he goes to grandma and grandpa's house and he's watching regular cable, he's like, what the hell is this? Why?
Right. Why do I have to
Where's the skip?
Where's the skip? Yeah. Where's the skip?
And there's
Jim,
fingerprints all over my screens.
Yeah.
Why can't I just?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Standing on
one of the worst mistakes I ever made. One of the worst mistakes I ever made was giving my son an iPad to use at a young age, and also bringing an OLED TV into the house.
Oh.
Because every day there'd be smear marks and finger marks, and he'd be trying to figure out how to get the show to move so he could pick a different episode on the TV. Of course, he was standing on, a piece of furniture to get to the TV, which is another issue. But
did you just put some painter's tape over it all to cover up the?
I've gone through a variety. I ended up taking it out of the living room for a while. Like, I was that despondent about the situation, but he eventually mostly grew out of it. But it's taken him until age 4 to figure out that, not everything is a touchscreen. Okay.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, really, it kind of should be. I mean, I feel like it's so intuitive. I mean, you got to give Apple credit for that. They are, I remember a friend of mine, when I first switched from PC to Mac, said, okay, think about the simplest possible way you would do what you want to do, and chances are that's how it'll work on the Mac, and I was like, well, I guess I would just drag it, and it's like, oh, there you go, that's what you do, it was sort of an eye opener to me.
Yeah. Well, I was working at Apple Retail in 2010, 2011.
Oh wow! Like actually in an Apple store or an Apple.
Yeah. I was at Apple Genius in Clarendon, Virginia, the Clarendon store, and we'd have customers come in, like usually older, like moms and grandmas, and this was right after Apple had introduced the Launchpad interface in Mac OS, which is a very iPad-like, know, and they'd come in and they'd be standing at the iMac. Sir, it's broken. It's not working, and it was just interesting to see how even that touch everything kind of mentality, they were so successful getting that into the consciousness of the public that it even, it permeated adults too, not just kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing company. Like, I think it's extraordinary what it's done and what it continues to do. I don't think I'm ever going to rid myself entirely of it, but I just feel right now, I mean, it's like they're making computers for the 0.1% of the 1%. Like, it just doesn't seem to, I've been dying to get back another one of those 2015 laptops. I mean, those MacBook Pros were the best.
Yeah.
I agree. I still regret selling my 2015 MacBook Pro 13. That was great, and everything.
Mine died. Mine died, and a Stargate fan said, "Well, I just got a new one. I'll send you my old one." Because it was just sitting around. And I was like, I use it all the time still because it's still like the best laptop.
So it still had things like, a full-size USB port or two and an SD card reader slot in case you wanted to import photos into Lightroom or something. Like, it's just amazing what you could do with that thing.
Wow.
This is like a 2014 Dell that is just, you can hammer it.
Yeah.
And it still survives. It's sad, but don't tell my kid that's what he's getting for Christmas.
I can't be seen in the coffee shop with that, Josh.
Yeah, come on.
You got to put some stickers on it, man.
Oh, it's true. Yeah.
But going back to your tech bandits, David. So, is there a?
We kind of had a schedule.
No, that's
Don't worry, Jim will edit all of this out.
As long as you want.
Message. Yeah, that's right.
Is there any way like that? So people can if you're interested, you can go to thetechbandits.com. Is there any way that are you accepting donations or help in any way?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I suppose I should do that, shouldn't I? So this year, I tried a few different ways of doing it. It was a volunteer thing to start. They then moved it to a lunch program, and I thought, oh, great, then I can cover some of my costs. So I sort of charged the parents for a year or two on that. But then I found like you'd have kids showing up whose parents hadn't paid, and I was like, what am I going to do? Say no? So I thought this year I'll switch to just a donation only thing. I've made a recommended donation for people whose kids are in the actual class. And then just people have been amazing about just sort of like throwing in a bit here and there with sort of to help out. And then I'm also trying to make it a little more appealing by throwing in some Stargate stuff. Like I'm going to do a commentary, which I haven't done for years, on a show probably before the end of the year, I think now, for anybody who donates more than like $5 or something. And my son is threatening to do that with me. And I think Kate, my sister, has already agreed to do it as well. So it's just like that kind of stuff and some t-shirts and just try to keep people interested because it really is it's just about, I always say, like, I don't teach anything. I'm not a teacher. But I am curious, and I feel like
you're an enabler, dude. The first hit is free.
That's it.
But that's exactly technology is free.
But that's it. I mean, and for me, like I learned this through years of failure. Like I would just break stuff. I took stuff apart. I would ask for things for Christmas so I could take them apart. And my parents would be like, why would we buy the Simon game and you had it apart in an hour? But you learned so much by taking stuff apart. And then eventually I was sort of banned from taking stuff apart in the house. So I would just go out and find stuff on garbage days. And I still do. My wife says, of all of your foibles, it is my least favorite one. So I come home with like garbage. I come home with old printers because it's great, all sorts of great stuff in printers, motors and sensors and all sorts of things. And the kids love pulling them apart. I found we got to this point in society, I feel now, where I was out looking for my usual garbage run, and I found a Roomba. Like, robots are disposable now. I turned to my son. I was like, "You don't understand. This is like a moment in history. Like, we've got to a point where people will throw out autonomous vehicles. Like this is nuts." So of course we got it, and we got a new battery and put in a new sensor, and the thing works fine. And I pulled it apart again. But that's but the point is we got it working for a minute. And I feel like if we lose that sense of that old hacker mentality of like, I want to see how it works, and being able to give the kids something to pull apart that they don't have to worry about breaking is a big thing for them, because people keep going like, it broke. I was like, what do you mean it broke? It broke by itself? You were staring at it and it broke? I was like, well, no, I did this. I said, okay, so don't do that again, but it's broken already, so don't worry about it. Like, it's not, you can't break it. It's already broken.
Yeah.
And I loved that. I just loved it. I spent the first probably 10 years of my life trying to make a sonic screwdriver because of Doctor Who. Because it just seemed so logical to me. Just that makes sense. Like, sound moves things, So, and I feel like that inspiration made me learn things that I never would have learned if I hadn't had that inspiration. So that's, as you say, I'm the pusher. I'm like the science, technology, engineer, arts, and math pusher. And I hooked up with a great charity here called Let's Talk Science, and they just do science inspiration for kids, and they just do all these really like little what do they got? Hydrogen fuel cell cars that you can build in school, and these amazing partnerships with the International Space Station. Oh wow, you're good. Like Living Space, that's it. So the Living Space is all about experiments that we can do in the classroom and on Earth here that kids can add data to the information the space station needs about what's a perfect environment for us to be living on. Like CO2 levels here don't mean much, but on a space station, you fall asleep and breathe out enough CO2, you're dead. You don't wake up because there's a bubble of it above your head that doesn't disperse. So it's just that kind of stuff. And neutron radiation, they have little bubble detectors that will show you whether it's been struck by neutron radiation. Just amazing, cool things that I just wish I'd had around when I was a kid, because I had no interest in this stuff. I never saw the connection between what I was doing after school and what was happening in science class. There was never any connection made for that for me, and I still don't see it in many cases. I still don't see it happening in schools.
It's almost a mystique of what high science is versus what you taking apart something and learning how, it's like I've got two wires and a light bulb. How do I wrap that around that to make that go? And then you figure it out. It's like, hey, I figured that out. And then you can go further on. You read a little bit more about electronics. Next thing you know, you got a breadboard and you're making a simple transistor, and it just moves on from there. I'm kind of sad that Radio Shack left, because they had those 150 in one science,
and then the 301, I had them all.
Oh yeah. They were great, and you learned basic things about resistance and
brilliant. Did you ever get that brilliant book on electronics? A little paperback with it was all done with like little stick figures, and it was this brilliant introduction to electronics. So that when I got into science class, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to do electronics, in term 3. In the meantime, turn to page." And you're like, "You're done. You're done." Like, what? I've already done electronics. What do we get to build something? You know what I mean? Like, someone should look that up, though. There's an amazing Radio Shack. I don't think I still have it. I had it for years. It's a little green notebook, basically like a notebook, and it looks hand-drawn. It may have even been hand-drawn at the time, and then like almost photocopied. But it was the best introduction to electronics you could ever have. Went into resistance, went into everything, capacitors, circuit, all sorts of. That was it. That was the one.
There you go.
Getting started in electronics. That was it.
Oh, good, Jim.
Hey, I just know how to use the Googles.
That was great. That's a rare $20 item.
I searched for Radio Shack Green Book Electronics, and
that's kind of tough.
Yeah, thanks, Sergey and Larry. Yeah, but nice.
Yeah, it's amazing. Anyways, yeah.
No, I know, Sebastian, I think you had a question you wanted to ask David, get his thoughts on something about, was it graphics cards? Right. Well, of course, we can talk about that too.
Well, yeah. I remember, I think the last time I was on the show with you was a few years ago, and VR was really becoming a big thing at the time. I had kind of a two-part question. One, because I know back then you were building up a new PC as a VR system.
That was it. Yeah.
Are you still as enthusiastic about VR? Is my first question, I guess.
Not at all. I think it's an absolute disaster.
But have you played Beat Saber?
Well, no. There are great games out there. And Beat Saber is fantastic. But as a platform, it's still. Well, first off, it's something like 30% of the population gets motion sickness, and I am one of them.
Okay.
It's so frustrating to me, because it's like some kind of a terrible torture that you're a nerd who can't play the nerdiest of games. I could not play the majority of VR games. And I think things seem to be moving towards AR now. But the kids, Baz is bugging me to set it back up again, because there's definitely a number of games that his friends are beginning to pick up on. But even then, I went in to play the PlayStation version with him the other day, and they said, "Oh no, he's not allowed to yet. He's not old enough." And I was like, What's he going to do? And they're like, oh no, they just, well, you're just not supposed to. And I was like, so I went and looked it up, and sure enough, Sony doesn't recommend it for people under a certain age because there may be developmental issues that develop.
Wow.
And I was like, well, then you're done. Forget it. If a third of the population can't use it, and no one under the age of so-and-so is able to use it because of possible learning disabilities because of it. I mean, that's nuts, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Is anyone a big VR fan?
Not really.
I have never been able to get into it. I will say, though, a couple of CESs ago, I visited, I don't know if you've ever heard of Tobii eye tracking. They've done some things with laptops and the eye tracking bar.
Yeah, the assistive stuff. I do a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah. They had a prototype of, I think it was an Oculus Rift that had Tobii eye tracking inside so that it was looking at your actual eye movements and it was adjusting your field of view based on your eye motion. So I tried it out, and instead of feeling sick after a few seconds, it actually started to feel pretty natural because I was able to move my eyes and then my head could follow my eye movement, which significantly reduced the sort of bird-like head motions that I was used to. And
that's actually brilliant.
I was playing for like 30 minutes in the booth before I realized it, trying out all the different games, and it was totally fine. I just feel like if that is what people had experienced first, that there wouldn't be the as many issues with it. But I'm very sensitive to the motion sickness, and it didn't happen with that. I still haven't really.
That gives me hope.
It's like you were in the 90s and you watched Lawnmower Man and you wanted that VR sensation.
I did, totally.
It was a terrible movie, but you wanted it.
Yep. I did. I still do. I mean, it's absolutely The Matrix, for God's sake. I mean, like it's
just
I would have traded them all
and
in
lay down in a bed.
I would have given them all up just to go back. I would have I'm with Joey Pantoliano on this one.
Plug me in. I'd just lay down in a bed.
Yeah. That's like, why would you want to do anything else? Look, maybe we'll eventually get to that. I just feel like right now it's incredibly unwieldy. There's that issue, the motion sickness issue, which if they can fix, I'm sure they will fix. But I also feel like it's also incredibly isolating. Like it's not, one of the things that is so intriguing to me about gaming right now is how they're not even game platforms, they're social platforms. I mean, my quality time with my son is spent gaming now. We have conversations with people from all over the world, some good, some bad, but that's just not there with VR yet. It's still a very singular, sort of isolated experience, like being back in the basement playing, Doom or something,
Yeah. On the standard non-VR side, my question was, has real-time ray tracing had any kind of an impact on you? Like, have you seen it? Do you feel like you must have it? Have you upgraded a graphics card to have better performance with it, or do you not really see the need yet?
I think we're ready to move now. Like I feel like that PC is fantastic. I haven't basically touched it since my son got it, but it's been beautifully powerful. We've got the screens are nowhere near as good as what it can put out at this point. But I feel like we're at a point now where I do want to make that. I do. We're starting to look at new cards and stuff now. Because the ads are getting very appealing to me. I'm beginning to see the pre.
I'll tell you, one of the smartest things that NVIDIA did was to apply RTX to Quake 2, because how many of us grew up, when I'm maybe not grew up, but their first really good 3D experience was with Quake 2. And you remember the monsters, you remember the textures, you remember the effect. And then you come back 20 years later and you load that up in RTX and you're looking around, it's like, it still looks like a 1997 game, but holy crap, there's some really neat things that they're doing that it feels new. And it's a really interesting, visceral kind of experience when you do the Quake 2 RTX. It's bizarre, but yeah, I mean,
I'm interested to try it.
They needed to do that last year instead of 9 months after they released the RTX stuff, where everybody's like, Yeah, big deal. RTX.
Right.
It doesn't make any difference, and it just slows everything down. But to do an A/B of Quake 2 with Quake 2 RTX, it's just like, holy crap. I mean, it's still a 1997 game with those physics and a lot of the textures, but the subtleties of lighting and shadow and just reflections and all that, it's really interesting. Hopefully you get a chance to try it.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I'm not saying it's like, it's the second coming of whoever, but it's really interesting.
Huh. I mean, I've also seen the stuff that's happening in Minecraft as well now, with the shaders and stuff they're using on that. Some beautiful stuff.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Minecraft RTX stuff is very impressive. Although
so
for me,
I'd love to.
like seeing Cyberpunk demos around E3 was kind of shifting me towards, okay, I can get positive about this. Although the thing I got the most excited about all year on that side of things was the Neon Noir demo at CES that the CryEngine people put out, which is platform agnostic. It runs on any graphics card, and it's using real-time ray tracing, but in a different way. It's not RTX specific. So but it was like amazing to see the reflections of kind of a Blade Runner looking world really showing off like neon lighting and reflections off of water and windows, and that kind of sold me on it, especially because the whole demo was presented running on a Vega 56 graphics card, so not even a high end, around a $300 graphics card. So
I mean, it's really, I don't understand why people go and see movies anymore, because frankly, they're more fun to play. I mean, I feel like we've got to the point now where this stuff is so good that my son talks about when we'll go and see action movies at the theater, and he'll go, "Oh, here comes the cartoon part." And it's like, he's so aware that there's a distinction between, there's people talking and now they're animated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not even that, I don't think it's even maybe it's that sort of that uncanny valley thing, but I think it's also just like, he's there for that part. Like, I don't care about in most of those movies, I don't care about the talking or the acting. Just get on with it. I always complained I was the boring stuff between fun effects. Like it's you like, I feel like these games are so immersive and so, I mean, Minecraft, you still can. We're sort of beginning to get back to it again now, but it's so incredibly immersive. And yet it wasn't visually stunning to start. It's a lot of the stuff that the kids are playing now do seem to be very simple, very basic stuff that really aren't pushing the bounds of a lot of this stuff. The big games, I think, are so hard and expensive to develop that they're beginning to have the problem like the movies. They all have to sort of try to appeal to as many people as possible, So it'd be interesting to see how the game industry matures with that stuff. But I'm dying to check out some of this ray tracing stuff, because it's just, unfortunately, if I do, then I'm going to end up spending money. That's usually the way it works.
That's the problem, right? You're going to be spending $500, $600, $700 on a graphics card to get those better frame rates and have all those.
I'll have to start doing reviews.
Yes,
and benchmarks.
Mm-hmm.
And people send you stuff.
Yeah,
they do.
Then it becomes a lifestyle.
Then they want you to actually review it, which becomes it cramps my style.
It does.
How do you do? Like, how do you deal with that stuff though? Like, how do you make sure that you're not? So if people are sending you graphics cards,
right?
There's no requirement to like be nice about them. They want you to be brutal. You are brutal. Do people stop sending you stuff if you send them bad reviews, or what's the?
I don't know. I understand that would be their only recourse, because we're not paid to do the review. They just send the item, and then there's no we don't have any pre-existing agreement before they send it. Like, hey, we'll send it, but can we talk to you about it first? Like, how are you going to approach this review? Like, so they just send it, and then if I don't like it, I say I don't like it. I guess a company could stop sending product, but that would probably.
But no one stopped sending stuff to you. No one stopped sending you. Yeah. Okay.
No,
I'm interested. It's such
the world of the Rocco 5.1 stereo system, and that is something that probably none of you know about, but it was a group out of Taiwan who had stereo products or in 5.1 surround decoder, and they sent out a bunch of them. And I was talking to the PR person, and I was like, you know what? This is a really bad product. It sounds bad when you start really turning it up. It starts crackling. It starts distorting. It's really awful. But at least your 5.1 decoder works really, really well. And the person's like, don't worry about it. All the reviews are bad. It's a pretty crappy product.
Huh.
Is this it?
Jazz Hipster Rocco 5.1.
The Jazz Hipster Rocco 5. Wow.
It was something else.
How did date there were no product so quickly?
I was kind of positive about it because it had good 5.1 decoding. And so you actually had the surround effects, but the speakers were crap, the subwoofer was crap, and the controls were crap. But the person was like, yeah, we knew it was bad, but we appreciate you guys reviewing it, and we'll send you something more if you'd like.
Huh. Send us more bad stuff.
You're like, no, thanks. I've got a huge backlog already, but I appreciate the offer.
I also think too, with ray tracing in particular, the RTX focused stuff, is that we're in this middle ground where obviously NVIDIA has refreshed their lineup with the super cards, but still the best ray tracing card is still the 2080 Ti, which is over a year old now. So we know that there's more coming. I mean, when NVIDIA released this, I don't remember who said it, but it was true. They were like, well, this is ray tracing, it's RTX. These are also, just by the nature of it, the worst RTX performing cards NVIDIA will ever release, because everything that comes after will be better. So with that,
Didn't you say that every time though? I mean, like, isn't
pretty much?
Yeah,
I guarantee you, this is the worst. This is the worst one you'll see in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
The 1996 B1000 from Verite is the worst 3D graphics card that you will ever see, but it's the first one that actually supports OpenGL fully.
Yeah,
that's the thing. As long as the API sticks around, then it doesn't matter as much. Like, this was first generation NVIDIA proprietary ray tracing technology with RT cores right there on the GPU die. But if DX12's implementation of real-time ray tracing lasts for a couple or 3 or 4 years and continues to be supported after that, then you'll have your pick of cards to follow. But yeah, like if you're in it for NVIDIA specific ray tracing,
it's all math. And there are certain things that GPUs can do and their shaders and that versus the tensor cores and the RTX cores. I mean, it's just math, and you've got to figure that out, and you got to know what to support. And eventually, your general purpose stuff, it will catch up, but it's going to be many, many years. So it's a minefield, really.
Well, the hardware is always so far ahead of the software. The development tools are always so far behind any of the hardware innovations. Oh, it seems that way to me, anyways. I don't,
Oh, it is. Yeah, you could extract more out of current hardware with more time, but that's the problem, because within a 12-month span, there's going to be an entire product lineup refresh, and more cores are going to be thrown at it, and higher clock speeds, and everything else. So it'll never.
Well, the other thing that really muddied the waters, I thought, was the whole cryptocurrency thing, right? Where just all of a sudden, all the cards just became like ridiculously expensive. I didn't even bother looking for a long period of time because I was like, there's all of a sudden there's like these, so there's these crappy cards that are worth like all of a sudden they're like thousands of dollars. Like, what the hell? You can only buy them in hundreds.
One of the important things, though, is we now have official confirmation that next gen Xbox and certainly PlayStation will do real-time ray tracing. So that will help push game development down that road. And that's going to be AMD as well. So that'll help with the cross-platform adoption. But
well, that's it. If we could get some more standardization, it would help.
Yeah, it's more than one way to skin a cat.
Unfortunately,
it's not just all tensor cores and RTX cores. It's just math. Yeah, you can adjust your silicon.
Stupid math.
I know.
NVIDIA could rewrite the drivers so that, say, an RT capable card, one that actually has the hardware, could use those RT cores and tensor cores and also allocate a certain number of the shaders to do the same work in the way that they've unlocked it for all the GTX 10 series cards to actually do real-time ray tracing using shaders. So you could kind of like double up on it and say, okay, well, we see you're running this at 1080. We don't need all of these cores to run this at 1080 high, so we can allocate those to better ray tracing performance. That's never going to happen. That's really complicated, but it would hurt their next generation were they to do that, were they to completely rewrite the drivers and say, hey, let's absolutely maximize. Let's say that the RTX 2080 is now the ultimate 1080 gaming card with ray tracing, when that card is sold really for 1440 and even 4K gaming. So it's just not going to happen.
Good way to spend $700
at least.
More in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. Add what, 30% to US prices, and that's a Canadian price usually?
And if Josh sends it, they'll add a big customs thing on it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. That's terrible.
What
We
is
didn't talk about those
card
customs declarations, Josh.
What?
So would you
Everything is
get
$1.
You get the 2080 Ti now? Then is that what you is that where you'd go with that?
If you were going after the highest frame rate, yeah, there's a huge gap between the 2080 Super at $699 and the 2080 Ti. It's just significantly faster for anything
and it's
real
got
time
more
ray
memory.
tracing.
11 gigs versus
It's got 11
8.
gigs on it?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Wow. Okay.
I mean, if you can
Which
hold
means
off
that
till next year,
there could be 12 gigs with extra memory channels.
Right.
But they don't do that.
But even the amount of, but it also depends on, I mean, surely, and they can pump that kind of memory, they can make use of it. That, like, is it that useful? The bandwidth is available to do that kind of, like 11 gigs back and forth like that? I mean,
it's funny that you say that, because early this year in February, when AMD launched the Radeon 7 graphics card that had 16 gigabytes of memory, they were trying to show these use cases where that actually made sense. They were talking about basically the super sampling stuff you can do within the driver and render at a much higher resolution and then downsample to your monitor's resolution. And they were coming up with these scenarios where it was using 12, 13, 14 gigabytes of memory. But the performance was terrible because the GPU itself wasn't fast enough to push that any higher than, I think, maybe up to 40 frames per second. So it was just silly. We don't need that much frame buffer yet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I'll probably hold off because I do feel like we're just around the corner for some fun new stuff, even if it's just to make the stuff that's available now a bit cheaper.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because I got to buy 2 now of everything, right?
At least the 2060 Super is a overall pretty good card. They can do a lot of stuff.
That's around 400. Well, probably 500 or more in Canada, but yeah, that's
1200.
I like that card at 400. I think the 2060 Super is great because it's almost all the way to an RTX 2070, which for most of the year was selling for $499. And then, of course, they slotted in the 2070 Super, which is within about 5 to 10% of a RTX 2080. Everything got really complicated because they added these super cards. And even though they officially discontinued the 2070 and 2080 vanilla cards, they're still out there in the retail channels. So you've got NVIDIA stuff at seemingly every imaginable price point. And you've got to be careful when you're shopping too, because wait a minute, does that say Super? Is the model number on that 2070S or 2070? Where's the S?
That's it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like there's almost kind of a, I mean, you almost just give up where you sort of like, you know what? I don't want to bother with it yet. I mean, I just, it's one of those things I need to research at some point. I did actually before I come on the show ever, like I'm always like, it's all about the homework. I'm always like, it's like my wife was joking. I went to the doctor yesterday and I worked out for the first time in like a month before I went. She's like, you can't catch up in the hour before you go to the doctor. It's not. I was like, but at least I'll look healthy. I'll look sort of fleshed and stuff. No, so
they'd be like,
so
why
can
is
you
your
identify this rash for me?
There you go. Great. Thank you, Josh. Oh dear God.
Well,
Thank God there's no ray tracing on that.
No.
That's tessellation.
That's an old technology.
Mm-hmm. Well, David, I'm glad to hear you do some research, even at the last hour. But that's more than the normal preparation of the crew here. I can attest.
Yeah. It's usually like, oh, should I turn my computer on because the podcast starts in 4 minutes?
Yeah,
that's my preparation.
What's on the agenda? All right.
Yeah, I'll read the show notes during the intro.
Yeah, well, that's why I told you, David. Like sometimes those show notes are still in flux after the show has started.
Right. Well, we were going to talk about SETI at home. Wasn't that that was the other one I was?
Yes. Well,
You're
real
talking
quick,
about,
I
right?
want to just mention Josh did another interview this week.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
interviewed Dave
Dave
Graham,
Graham.
who's from Dell Technologies.
Heavy G.
Yes.
Yo. Look
and
at
he's a
that. I
tech-
mean, he's in a minivan and he's going
He looks-
places.
Mhm.
He looks
Well,
tough.
here.
He's so much friendlier in when you see him on the actual interview. He looks much friendlier.
Yeah, I did want to clarify. This is the picture he intentionally gave me to use, so I wasn't trying
Really?
to
Was this
say
the
anything.
Dell? This was the Dell authorized picture that you could
Yes.
use.
Oh, is
There-
it? It looks like it's like the face of a man who's about to pull over and tell the kids to shut up.
There was a
He's
comment
had
here.
enough.
Yeah, that's it. If I will
That is
turn
a
this
great
car
comment.
around.
Yeah. Not sure where he is going in that minivan, but the beard and gaze tell me there is little that will stop him.
Oh, really? See, they've gone the opposite with it. I thought he was about to pull over,
Okay, yeah.
but I'm a
Well,
dad, so
I don't know. I mean, it's a nuanced performance from him here. I think you can read a lot into this still image.
It's
about,
so
you know,
funny because he just doesn't come across. He's so laid back. I haven't watched the whole thing, but I started watching it because it's just fascinating. So
Yeah, so it's
What is
it's
this?
a
He's
great-
sipping on a mug of something? I feel like
got
I was
tea.
led to believe he was going to be driving a minivan.
I've also got to get a logo that sits just perfectly right.
Mhm.
Like he's just got that Dell just runs right. It's almost like he's got his own little
That lower third.
lower third?
Yeah.
lower third. He's got his own lower third.
I need my own lower third.
Yeah.
I'll work on it.
I'm gonna get a tattoo of like right here.
Yeah.
Just-
Yeah.
I gotta watch for overhang, but yeah,
But so Josh and Dave talked for about an hour on all kinds of stuff. Dell's current portfolio, Dave's thoughts on AMD, networking technology, the trends in the industry. So that's another great conversation from Josh. So check that out over at PCPro.com where you can see the video and the links and find out where you can go contact Dave if you've got your own questions for him. So
Yeah, and
Did
and
you know
the
him
one thing
before,
that
Josh?
I've met him some months ago. Well, not actually physically, just over Twitter.
Huh.
And he thought that, hey, it'd be really nice to have an interview with you guys. And I was like, yeah, but you're a Dell scrub and you look funny and I don't want to do anything because I'm lazy. But no, everything came around and he was excited to do the interview and a really good guy. And the things that usual the regular desktop users and notebook users and that we don't realize the infrastructure behind a lot of these servers. And he talked about InfiniBand. He talked about how they handle massive IOs. It's like, it's like, hey, Samsung has this, half height, half length PCIe 4.0 card that does something like 8 gigabytes per second of reads and writes. And he said, you know what, that's really fast in a singular thing, but in enterprise, we have technologies in the back end that you can just expand. And even if you've got spinning disks, you can just have so much bandwidth and so low latency because of the infrastructure there and stuff that, is out of the reach of you or I in terms of money. But for these, Fortune 500 companies and internet guys who have, money to spend, it's not a big deal to be able to get that kind of technology. And so, it's really interesting to kind of listen to him and what he has to say, especially in the enterprise, the tools that they have and the technology that they have that just, we don't realize how much of a higher level that is than what we're used to on the desktop and the stuff that we can build ourselves, or getting that, Synology NAS that you could plug 4, 1G and 1 gigabit Ethernet ports in, and you think, I'm really smoking with 4 gigabit of aggregate bandwidth. And these guys are hitting 200 gigabit in between machines. It's a really interesting conversation. And Dave is a super smart guy and he's well read and he knows their product stack up and down. So if you get a chance, listen to it, watch it. He's a really interesting, funny guy, really personable, knows his stuff. And, hopefully you'll get something out of it. And it just shows how dumb I really am.
And that's worth seeing.
It is.
And
I thought it was interesting.
John,
He was talking about Ethernet, how it's just still hard to beat Ethernet because it's you get enough of them, it's still more reliable, it's still and then going back to
It's
the tape
so
drive
optimized and
yeah,
expandable. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
it's
And
fascinating.
tapes.
It's just
It was fun to talk about tapes.
one of my old jobs was doing backups for a voicemail company. Well, I instigated a backup procedure for it and went and bought tape drives and everything because they didn't have any, and they had like reams and reams of customer data, and they just weren't even doing backups. Like it was, they'd go and do they'd upgrade this really kludgy old customer service software that basically ran their entire voicemail system, and they would do upgrades without doing a backup first. And I was always like, no, stop! I'm doing backup. Go have a smoke, have your lunch, come back in 4 days, and I'll have backed up. Because the tapes were just, oh God, they were awful.
Slow.
Oh,
Yeah.
I also found that they never worked. Whenever we had to go back to a tape drive, I almost never returned the stuff that we put on it.
oh man, because you can't. That's not an instantaneous check. You've got to read and verify, and you won't know until you're done whether it's the data is there.
But it is funny how I keep coming back to that Netflix thing. When I bought Netflix stocks because I heard an interview with a guy who was originally started the company, and he said everyone underestimates the bandwidth of the mail service.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's talking about all this video they're going to be able to do, and everyone's struggling to get this stuff online. I can deliver 9 movies to you in a night. You know what I mean?
Sneaker net, yeah.
That's smart. It's really the sneaker net. That's exactly it. Oh my God, the sneaker net. Yeah, of course. God, I haven't heard that for a while. It was back in the floppy days.
Well, I mean, but it's still was it EC2? One of the big backups, or maybe Backblaze. If you're doing a major backup, that initial backup, they will just mail you a giant hard drive, and then you ship it back because they calculated based on shipping time what the bandwidth is of how many gigabytes per second of data is actually being transferred in that, and so it's the
Wasabi ball. Yeah, Wasabi, that their online storage. Apparently, they send you a little ball storage unit that you can then send back. I thought it was genius. I haven't done it yet, but it's something I probably should do at some point.
Yeah, I mean, in a world where upload bandwidth is still a huge issue, regardless. I mean, because here we can get a gigabit down, but we're still 20 megabits up at most. Yeah,
I finally went fiber here, if it's real fiber. I don't even know if it really is, and it's made a considerable difference, and mainly because of the upload. The upload is just so much faster.
That's the key.
It's still slower, but. Yeah.
But as Josh said for his interview, he said, listen to it too, because that's right. I've started putting the audio versions of these interviews into our podcast feed, so you can, choose how you want to enjoy it. We got a lot of requests for that, so you'll find both this interview with David as well as the interview last week with Kevin Crewell in your podcast feed there as well. So hopefully,
that's smart because it makes a huge difference. Yeah. It's just so much easier to have it on in my hearing aids that I just got.
He could sweat to the oldies.
I could sweat to the oldies. Yeah.
Getting kind of old.
Well, let's talk about as David alluded to. We have some news, some interesting news about SETI at home and Navi graphics cards. This kind of came out in the last few days. There's some issues with Navi and OpenCL. And it's not just this project, but basically, if you're unfamiliar, I mean, I think most of you know, but SETI at Home is a distributed computing project, one of many out there that takes all this data and all this processing that needs to get done and sends it in little chunks out to thousands or millions of computers, and you all kind of work on little pieces. And that's great, but when you do that, you have to have good data integrity. You have to make sure that the calculations that are all being done are accurate, and the way that they do that historically is cross-validation. So there's no one computer working on any one data set or any one problem. I'll work on one, and then somebody on the other side of the country will work on the same thing, and then we compare our results. And that way you can tell everything's moving along and is accurate. There is an issue with Navi-based GPUs, so these RX 5700, 5700 XT, throwing up bad data, and even worse, the chance that they're cross-validating that bad data. So two Navi graphics cards will work together on something and both come up with the wrong result, both talk to each other and say, yep, got the same result, we're good, and now the whole data set is polluted. And so there's warnings out there from SETI at Home. It looks like it's affecting other distributed computing projects like Folding at Home, other BOINC related projects. So you probably, if you are involved in these projects and you have a Navi based GPU, please pull it out. They're asking people to stop using those cards right now. The projects themselves are aware of the issue. AMD is aware of the issue, but as of this afternoon, when I last looked at the threads, no solution yet. So
There's a lot of angry scientists.
Yeah, I mean, because you think about some of these data sets and how complex they are, and now the whole thing might have to get thrown out because you can't be sure that some bad data didn't get snuck in there somewhere.
Hey, we got 30 wow signals, man.
Have you seen those satellites? Those dishes? They've got they have to me it's like the most sci-fi of all of them. That one in the jungle and it's in Puerto Rico or something.
It's in Puerto Rico.
It is Puerto Rico, right? Just that gorgeous giant dish surrounded by jungle and oh man, it's just like the coolest thing ever.
Baby. GoldenEye.
It is. It's total GoldenEye. Yeah, it's the whole Boink thing. I mean, like I guess the thing that I didn't realize. Yeah, that's it. Like, look at that thing. Like, that's just
Arecibo.
Yeah. If you're gonna build a dish, that's the way to do it. The thing that as I said, I was doing homework. The thing that came out about this that I was fascinated by was that obviously the setting at home is just is ingenious, but the fact that it had two purposes. One of them was obviously to try to figure out when ET was phoning home or not, but the other one was just showing the power of this Boink, this distributed computing system, which has just become the de facto. It's like the largest collective network of computing available to man now. I mean, it's extraordinary. And I love that they had to change it because some jerk started hacking it within the first couple of years it was out. They started faking their results and stuff. So that's why they created this new Boink thing. It was just there's a fun history in there, I'm sure, somewhere of that. A couple of nerds.
And there's tons of projects. So this one, obviously searching for radio signals. There's the folding at home, which is protein folding for medical purposes. There's Einstein at home, which is it's another cosmology related study of looking at galaxy formation. So there's all different kinds of projects. You can find something that you're interested in, and then you can assign your graphics horsepower to that or CPU horsepower, but just not if you have Navi. If you have Navi, hold on.
Apparently you can also do Android. You could actually have your Android phone.
Yeah.
Well, there's not on all of them, but on some of them.
So some of the projects.
Because my phone is not nearly hot enough in my pocket.
Yeah. Well, that's it though. So it only uses it if you're at 90% and you're plugged in and you're on Wi-Fi.
Yep. There's controls for keeping it or trying to make it energy efficient, and it may just be a tiny little bit, but you combine millions of those tiny little bits, and you get
Josh,
pretty good.
How cold is it in Wyoming right now?
You know what? It got to a high of 36 today.
And you're complaining about a warm phone. You
could
pay money for hand warmers. You could have it right there in your pocket. Look
at David. He's wearing a toque.
I'm relegated to the basement. It's cold down here. We're in Toronto. Is this snow? There's minus something miserable, but in Celsius, you wouldn't understand. So, it's a Canadian thing.
Yeah. Well, we replaced our resident Canadian with another one, so we've got
nice. Oh, is Jeremy Canadian?
Yeah. He's up in Vancouver.
He's in Vancouver.
It's only the accent. It's only 15C in this room right now. By the way,
that's very old man in a sweater of you.
That's brisk.
Pretty cold.
I'm surprised I can't see your nipples through those antlers.
I think those gold antlers are really real glint.
I taped them just so it wouldn't be a distraction.
Showing.
Limited chafing with the tape.
Yeah.
But all right, let's continue on with the news so we don't go too long here.
You can see this spiraling horribly out of control. This is the last time I'm invited.
I've been told YouTube is purging channels that aren't commercially viable. So
what?
Yeah,
and kids channels. My son told me to start swearing, otherwise I was going to be demonetized as children's stuff.
Yeah. But some news briefly from Corsair. So Corsair has been buying up some big companies over the last couple of years. They bought Elgato in mid 2018. Earlier this year, they bought Origin PC, and now they've picked up SCUF Gaming. It's a boutique high-end controller company. I've never used their products. I've kind of heard of them. They're big in esports areas. They've got real high-end custom controllers and stuff in the $150 range. So you're paying quite a premium over a stock controller, but they claim, very popular adoption amongst esports stuff. I think they said 80 or 90% of professional gamers use a SCUF gaming product. So If you're into that, it's going to become part of the Corsair family. It's going to maintain its own brand, just like Elgato and Origin have thus far. So it'll be owned by Corsair, but continue to operate. All the warranties and service and everything will carry over. But you can check out the announcement over at the Corsair newsroom, and check out the SCUF Gaming website if you're interested there.
We have the
Alright, you know
Elgato
what?
capture.
Yeah, Elgato makes some
Very
good stuff.
mature.
I've used a lot of their products.
The game controls look gorgeous. I like that extra back. The extra back paddles look like wicked. But
Yeah, it's similar to the Xbox Elite controller. They've got these extra paddles and stuff on the back, and extra grips, and
because all I need is more freaking things to figure out how to play on Fortnite.
right.
The sun's already just running circles around me.
Well,
Corsair started out as memory only,
yeah,
and then they started
that's
expanding into. They did some cooling, some all-in-one
I think
cooling.
I've got
and then
Corsair. I think I've got the Corsair cooler. I think it's a Corsair liquid cooler I've got in Bass's computer.
But they just kept expanding. They're such a well-run company. It's such a low-margin product is memory that they were able to, add LEDs back in 2002 when nobody else was doing anything like that. They just, gosh, they're everything: cases, power supplies,
Keyboards, mice, headset,
everything, and memory. They still do memory.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. The kid, speak about memory. One of the kids that I got in the first year of Tech Bandits, he builds his own PCs now. And I said, "Oh, look at those!" We were looking at some memory stuff, and I was like, "Oh, look at those! Look at all the LEDs and that." He goes, "No, then you're just paying for flash. It's not important." I was like, "I'm so proud of you."
Nice.
Like, no, green PCBs only. That's what I.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Real quick too, I guess Jeremy reminded us all that Windows 7 end of life is coming up for the regular folks. If you're still on a volume license, still on a volume license, you'll be all right. But January 14th, I think it is, or 15th, one of those, or mid-January. So a few more weeks here, and just as it was with XP a few years ago, you'll start seeing the pop-ups. There'll be no more security updates. So prepare yourself. One way or the other, if you're still on Windows 7, we'll have to move to 10, as Sebastian.
When did 7 come out?
8.
2009.
2009.
Was it really
So it's
that
10,
long
well,
ago?
10
Wow,
years.
yeah.
It's not bad. It's a decade of.
Vista was like 2006.
Yeah, Vista was only on the market for 3 years.
Vista was awesome.
Oh man,
Yeah.
oh that hurts just to say it.
What's funny to me is that the official upgrade path is 10 from 7. It's like 8 and 8.1 never happened.
They were
Don't worry about it.
red-headed stepchildren who were kicked into the closet.
Well, it's
I
shame
am a
'cause
Windows 8.1 fan. I think it was a low
8.1 was great.
very good operating system.
Yeah.
But
Well, you get
10
another year on
came
that
out?
one.
yeah.
Yeah. But you can't buy it anymore. You can't acquire
you
it unless
cannot.
you already have it.
No.
So, and then real quick, sticking with some bad news from Microsoft, ads are coming back. If you guys remember, they introduced some ads into the built-in Windows 10 apps, things like Mail and Calendar, and you'd get these little pop-ups and stuff. And then Microsoft, in the face of backlash, removed them. To their credit, at least temporarily, and unfortunately, it looks like they are coming back. So the only exception is if you're an Office 365 subscriber, you won't see it in things like the Mail app. But for the rest of us, if you're using those apps, you don't have to. But if you are using those native apps, you're going to start seeing the ads come back. And as Jeremy points out, there's some issues where, like in a mobile layout. So if you're looking at the Windows Mail app on a smaller display, the ad you can't close it. Like it gets in the way of your mail, and you can't get rid of it. You can't access your mail. So it's a pretty poor implementation as well. So, I mean, I view this as just another reason why we should avoid those built-in apps anyway. There's really no need to use the native apps. And they had some promise, but if Microsoft's going to take this approach with it, who needs it? Go with Thunderbird. If you need some, a decent mail app, still works.
Either the operating
Eudora
system is
is-
free. Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say Eudora's gone. So
Yeah.
Thunderbird
Eudora,
and
yeah.
just webmail now. My point is, if you're going to have an ad.
So we really went low on that one. I was like,
that's
it's
fine.
all over.
But if you're going to show ads, don't charge for the OS. If I were to build a PC today, I would buy an OEM license for this, and they start at around $100 for the home version. I pay $100, and then I still have to see advertising
I couldn't believe
within
it.
the operating system. So it's just,
I could not believe it. I paid for an operating system, which I haven't done for years because of Mac. I paid for Windows 10, and everyone thought I was crazy. They're like, you can get a copy from. So I was like, no, I want to buy it. Like I'm taking it to kids. I can't, I was like, here, pirate this. And it just ads showed up. I was like, what the? It's like, but then again, this is the problem. I remember going to the theater and paying for my ticket to go and see a movie, and then they put an ad in front of it, and I was outraged.
Yeah.
And then you just get used to it, right? I mean, I'm
now,
afraid
now
that
the ads are in the movies.
What was that?
Now the ads are in the movies. Like, we have to stop Thanos, but first I need this Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
And,
hey, it's refreshing though, isn't it?
It is.
And what a unique flavor.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Excuse me. I just need to take a drink.
let me just
like
get my product placement in there.
Refreshing.
Do you remember the Chevrolet ad about it was all this epic thing about taking a Corvette and beating the fastest 24 hours? This was like in 1988, 89. So one of the first ads that I saw in the theater.
Huh.
And then there was this track in Texas, and they had to do a 24-hour thing, and it was, the ZR1 just, blasted past the highest, average speed. It was like 189 miles an hour.
Huh. Well,
that was one of my first theater experiences. That and Don's IGA with fresh fruits and vegetables.
Get this. One of the first ads that they showed in Toronto was a butter ad. And it starred my little sister. Not Kate, another little sister.
Oh, wow. What brand of butter?
No, it's just like butter. It was like the Canadian dairy
just butter.
Something or another. Yeah. It was like it was all set to like the Mellow Yellow song or something, and it was just painful.
Oh wow. Yeah. Well, I mean that's where we're at now. Ads everywhere.
I guess it works. I mean, I guess that's all I can assume because
does it? I don't know. I mean, I guess the ones that you think work are the ones that just build the subtle brand recognition. But some of the stuff is so forced, it kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth. But
I would definitely, if I was a company, I would have serious second thoughts about wanting to pay to get advertising on a platform that so many people are going to be pissed off to see you show up. Well, that'd be a great way to stop it. Would just be to say, like, I'm not buying anything that shows up on my Windows.
Yeah. And people have tried that in other regards of like boycotting certain platforms and certain products, but I just don't know if it has an effect in the long term. I mean, I don't know if Microsoft's ever released statistics, but they bundle like Candy Crush with the Windows installation, and that's an ad. Whoever, King or whatever the company is that owns that, pays Microsoft to put that in. And I wonder what their return has been. Have they seen player growth? I mean, I just uninstall it every time I have to reinstall Windows, but I'm sure that some people have picked it up, and they've had net growth because of it. So, but we'll see. Just don't use the apps. There's an app called is it Shut Up 10 that allows you to turn off all the ads and tracking and alerts. So I think Alan picked that as a pick of the week. A year or two ago.
Right.
That guy. But yeah, well, just keep an eye on it. Don't use the built-in apps if you don't want ads there. Also, something a little more positive, a classic game has come back to GOG. Sebastian wrote this up for us. I remember playing this game like 20 years ago. It's Blade Runner, the original Westwood 3D adventure.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe it's been 22 years. And of course, the game came out years after the movie. From 1982. There's a really interesting documentary about the development of this too. If you ever want to check it out, just search around for it. Ars Technica hosts it. It was part of their War Stories series on like inside the developer and how the game was made. They invented some technology to make this even happen. Because remember, they they weren't just targeting 1997 computer hardware. They actually were trying to make sure it would run all the way back to like a Pentium 90, I think was their target. So they had to make something that looked as impressive as possible and played fluidly, but would actually run on very old hardware. And it's crazy. This game was basically lost for a long time. I had a copy, but I couldn't run it on anything. It wasn't supported. You can't just run it inside of DOSBox because it required Windows. And it wasn't until October of this year that the folks who developed the it's called SCUM VM. It's something it was basically originally designed to run those old Lucasfilm games that used the SCUM system, those adventure games. They've actually developed a build of it that supported this game specifically. They had to go out of their way to create support for this old Windows game. And I actually wasn't shocked when I found out that GOG was releasing this, because I'm thinking, well, they have supported other SCUM games as well, so it just made sense. So the big issue was going to be rights, and they ironed that out, and you can actually buy it. It's $10 to buy it now. It's actually like 10% off right now for their introductory thing, but to get this, and it actually runs on any platform. It'll run on Mac OS. It'll run on Linux if you're using Ubuntu 18.04 or higher, I think, and it will run on any version of Windows from 7 through 10. And I briefly tested out just the SCUM VM implementation. I haven't actually installed the GOG.com version yet, but it's kind of amazing to have it just install and load when I think of all the times I tried and failed to get this to work on like a Windows 7 or Windows 8 machine.
Yeah.
You couldn't do anything. The executable file wouldn't even load. So, and it's a pretty staggering accomplishment to look at it today. Yeah, it looks a little pixelated on a bigger monitor, but far better than you might expect. And the actual playability of it is excellent. And it's pretty immersive for this era of gaming, even by today's standards. You're a detective, you're a Blade Runner. You're not playing the Harrison Ford character. You're playing a different detective, and it's kind of a side story. It's like a guide-in of the movie. So you're investigating a different crime that also involves replicants. And there are parallels, and there are even similar situations. You can go to the Tyrell Corporation, and you can see Rachel and talk to the actual, like the same characters who actually make reference to Harrison Ford's Deckard character. And so it's still like, just definitely check it out, watch the video. I think for $10 is absolutely worth it, especially considering I'm one of those people who would find the game, and I found it, I think, for like $5 when I was thrifting, and then spent hours and hours trying to get it to work, and wishing I had an old Windows 95, Windows 98 PC up and running just so I could play this one game. And I also hope this is a gateway to more of the Westwood Studios games coming to GOG, because Jim, you would probably know better than I, but I don't think they have any of the other Westwood Windows games. Like, they don't have Command & Conquer Tiberian Sun or anything like that, do they?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Because that required Windows. So I think any of the stuff that you could get running on DOS, they've probably already supported because they can have a DOSBox implementation of it. But I don't know. I think some of those other games are going to be a little bit tougher because they're going to require some kind of a different wrapper. And SCUM VM actually targeted this game specifically to bring it to Windows 10 PCs and Mac OS and Linux. So
yeah, I'm just checking out.
If only someone would recreate Archimedean Dynasty, the original. That was one of the best games that I've ever played. I'd play it again, but yeah, it just doesn't run. And the follow-ons are crap.
I don't think I ever played that.
I never played it. No, I don't know that one. I mean, Blade Runner, I remember trying to play, and I could not get it to run. Like, it just crashed every freaking time.
Yeah.
I played it years ago, but...
Oh, there you go. Look at that.
Another Westwood game, Tiberian Sun. This was actually what got me into strategy games. It was the first strategy PC game I can ever remember playing at a cousin's house, and it was like, I just sat there at the computer. I just sat there clicking and making buildings and moving my troops around. Like, just got hooked on it. Played it for like 3 hours. And, you know, if you don't have a patched version of it, or you don't have an old PC, you're just not going to get this running. So it's nice to see older games like that brought back. And I hope the Command and Conquer series is one that comes back too.
Oh, yeah. And Blade Runner is just such a God. I just love that movie. That was like one of those like seminal moments for me growing up. I saw this film and I was just like, oh my God, it's like this is the future.
And it's today. The future is now.
2019. I know.
2019, yes.
I know. It's amazing. I think it's actually a really great time for them to put it out again. And I think I think I'm going to get it just because just for pure, just retro love. And also just even just listening to that Vangelis soundtrack and the big fiery off burning things where they are. I love that stuff. It's just extraordinary.
And Maxius in our Discord chat reminded me that there is the Command and Conquer remastered coming out. So that's an official EA project.
Okay, so yeah, if they have the remastered coming out, then they're probably not going to have the original available.
Yeah. And I got to say, man, I'm not a fan of the ultra smooth remastered look.
I love that pixelated look, but I played it, on a Windows 95 computer when it came out. So,
all right. Well, let's finish up the topics for the week. We've got a review from Kent. He's back with another case review. Again, taking the burden off of Sebastian, helping him avoid a total breakdown from case reviews. But this time it's the Silverstone PS14-E. It's a tempered glass mid-tower case. I think it's about $60 retail?
It was selling for $57.99 when we published this.
Okay.
So is that a 5 1/4 inch drive?
It is, Josh. It is.
What?
Optical drives are supported with this case.
Wow.
Is that not normal anymore?
They're getting harder to
very, very unusual. Yeah, almost every case we get in for review has a solid front panel and no external drive support.
I was just looking at ours.
Tom Jones would tell you that it's not unusual, but that's Tom.
Jesus, oh man. It wasn't enough to date yourself with a 5.5. You gotta throw in Tom Jones as well, just to really put the nails in the coffin.
Doomed.
But I guess so. Kent gave it a silver award, right, Sebastian?
Yep, he was on the fence about it, and really it was the price, because you come down to, with these really budget-minded cases, you look at the features, the support, the build quality, and I like Silverstone, and they have rock solid stuff. At the lower end, you will see some like thinner materials and like the punch outs. He pointed out the fact that there are punch outs in the back for the expansion card slots, not removable covers. So you see things like that when you get down to like $50 range. At $65, he wasn't wild about it, and really it was the $8. It was like, oh, well, if it's selling for $57, then actually it was good enough to be a recommended case because the performance was good. It was right in the middle of the pack as far as noise levels and thermals. It looks nice. It's reasonably sturdy, although if you spend more, you will get more. Like I personally have played around in the $70 to $80 range a little bit this year. The Be Quiet, I think it was the Dark Base 500 series, is a solidly made case, but you're going to spend $79 or so for that case, and I think $89 if you want a side panel window. So you have to sort of budget in things like that. Like this has a solid tempered glass side panel. One thing it does help differentiate it is that front external drive bay. The 5 1/4 inch bay is unusual these days, and if you can find a case that has it, then that's a whole different product segment. You can't really compare this directly to other cases in the $65, $70 range because they're not.
Yeah, because only boomers will buy this, right?
What are you going to put in it? Like, what are you going to put in that drive bay? Like,
One
of my TIAC 1.2 megabytes 5 1/4 inch.
I got a
drive,
Kenwood 57X CD.
Or the do you remember the Sound Blaster Audigy Platinum? I think it was. They had the 5 1/4 inch front panel with the controls on it. Yeah, you could use it for that, or a fan controller, 5 1/4 inch fan controllers.
I still have the LG HD, DVD, and Blu-ray combo drive.
Oh,
So that's going to go with me into my grave.
Do
Yes.
you use it?
Because I've got
there you go. Look at that.
HD, DVD
Perfect.
drive.
That's
there
what
you go,
put in
Josh.
there.
Yep, the
Pull
thermal
that
tape
off.
circle fire. Yep, it's easy installation,
Oh yeah.
beautiful
Oh, look at that.
Look at it
Oh
go.
Lord.
I would
meters.
seriously consider that.
That
It
thing in
doesn't-
the middle, by the way, is a speaker. Definitely check out the LGR video because it's pretty astonishing how bad it sounds.
And yeah, the
The
VU
single
meters
speaker,
just kind
the
of
single speaker with the stereo, with the stereo.
VU meters are mono. They
Yeah.
move up and down regardless of the left and right channel volume
Oh,
level
that's great.
while playing from a single 2.5-inch mono speaker.
So I think we've referenced this LGR video, but I'll have the link in the show notes. You really should watch it if you're into 20-year-old crazy accessories for your 5 1/4.
Is LGR? Are they're the old computer guys? They do all the old.
It's one guy basically, Clint. He's into vintage. He started off with vintage games. Now he does all these kind of vintage hardware products and wood grain.
Yeah,
everything.
he goes like thrift shopping and comes back
Yes,
with. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
a great channel.
Did they do those series of? Did he do a series of stories on old, like software companies and stuff as well? Did he do like a
Yeah,
history
he
of
has-
things?
Yeah.
He has a series
Tech
called
Tales,
Retrospective.
LGR.
Yeah, there was some
Tales.
great tech. I saw
Yeah.
a couple of those.
He hasn't done
Yeah,
one in a
really
while,
good.
but those are always very well researched, very interesting.
Yeah, like really depressing stories about like the guys who could have been Microsoft, and they ended up dying in a car accident, and then
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
or,
Everybody
all
always
that.
ends up dying in Tech Tales.
Yeah,
That's
it's
true.
like they're always like miserable. They're like ghost tales
Yeah.
for they're like ghost stories.
It's
for
horribly
tech.
depressing stuff to fall asleep to. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get the picks of the week going. Let's see. David, what have you got for us for a pick of the week?
Well, I threw in this Google Teachable Machines, and the reason is it's just this amazingly simple interface to this beautiful AI, behemoth that Google has created. And I used it the other day with on a project for a little kids makerspace show where I taught it to recognize. So I took the most complex, expensive, sophisticated AI available to mankind for free here, and I taught it to recognize farts. So different fart sounds would make the robots move in different directions, and that was my bid to try to inspire a future generation of AI programmers. But it was
Were you like, was it amplitude or volume? What was the?
So basically, it's almost like using a picture of the frequencies.
Okay.
So it's doing very good. It's very good. And I didn't know this, but apparently, because I thought, if you can do speech recognition. So these little robots that I have, I think they're behind me somewhere. And so any of these guys here, the easy bought ones, you can tie into any of the Microsoft AI stuff and some of the Google stuff, and you basically stream it to the robot. So what we did in this situation was we took the teachable machines, and then using a little JavaScript, we sent the information to these easy robots, and then they would respond to what we taught them. But basically, they're better at images than they are at sound right now still, which is extraordinary because I would have thought that images would be more difficult. Apparently not. So my hunch is that they're not just listening to the sound; they're actually looking at the frequencies, because you get this little thumbnail of what you've recorded. And I just thought, what was the most inane way of using this brilliant technology? Well, so I gave it there was fart noises, rubber chickens and stuff, and we would just make the robots move around based on that. It was complete chaos. But it turns out I'm very good at making fart noises, apparently. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's more impressive, I think, is that you can consistently reproduce the sound that you need rather than the machine identifying it.
But this is the neat thing, is you could really do I did all sorts of different noises, and it's incredibly responsive. Like, it's really good at picking stuff up. And then there's a whole posing one as well, where it can actually recognize poses. Mm-hmm. And then the image recognition, of course, is basically flawless because they're so good at it. But it's just a really fun way for anybody just to goof around with AI, and sort of get an understanding of just sort of how it could be used. And it's they've just done such a great job of laying out how you can integrate it with different things. There's a cute little sorting machine that they created. It's just it makes it very accessible. I was really impressed. I played with it for a while, and I just thought it was, I mean, the potential there is amazing. And I really like the way they've sort of presented it to people. So that was my pick of not just the week, probably of the year for me, because if you can make fartable robots, that's, I'm waiting for the Nobel Prize people to call me up.
Well, get that Roomba that you rescued from the trash and have it respond to the commands from your flatulence. So.
Well, Baz wanted to program the robot so that when it heard a fart or sensed a fart, it would walk up and point at the person who did it.
Nice.
Which I thought was kind of genius.
Methane detector.
Yeah.
I was like, look, it's easier. You just get it to point at the dog every time. Let's just,
Yeah, exactly.
But we need an invasion of the body snatchers type point where it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. It's the. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I know.
Oh God, that creeped me out.
Bjorn. Do you guys remember Bjorn 3D?
Bjorn 3D.
Oh. Bjorn.
The website.
Yeah, website, and the guy he works for the Nobel Commission, and so
does he?
It was many years ago. I was talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, we tried to call Al Gore because he'd won this Nobel, and we couldn't because he was in his private jet going over the Atlantic." And so, of course, the irony of
low emission
of all that was
inconvenient.
No. Bjorn 3D works for the Nobel guys as a sysadmin, so it's really kind of funny.
Huh. There you go. That's it. So it's basically a toy, but I find it fascinating.
Well,
right, that's
based on the age-old rule of he who smelt it dealt it. Therefore, the robot will always be the guilty party.
It's true.
And that's
always. Although I make the noise, so it's just recognizing it. So
that's just a Pavlovian response mechanism that you have basically it's. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but
he's not salivating.
I was just going to let you dig that hole
when he's on the pot. So no.
Keep going, right. Christmas sweater.
Nope.
Teachablemachine.withgoogle.com. I'll have the links in the show notes for you.
It really is fun. Check it out.
My pick real quick is it's that time of the year. You're getting lots of requests from your nonprofits and stuff. And one of the ones obviously, if people are starving and you have food banks and actual humanitarian things, by all means. But if you've got a few bucks left over, head over to the Internet Archive. They're doing their fundraiser. They've got a matching challenge going on right now. So some other donor has pledged to match 2-to-1. So it's a good time to give. I give every year to these guys. This is the Wayback Machine. This is the audio archives. They've got live concerts, books, software. They've a couple years ago they introduced that video game. What do they call it? The Internet Arcade. So it's in-browser emulated versions of thousands of classic arcade games. It's just an incredible resource. I rely on this all the time. Even if you don't rely on it now, you may rely on it in the future because it's collecting and preserving the internet and all the media associated with it. Because as we know, I mean, how many times do you go to a link and it's dead, or try to load an image and it's gone? This is stuff that we can never get back. And so having these guys there to do that work and try to preserve it is really important. So head over to archive.org/donate.
Just like the hamster in the blender flash.
Yes. We can't lose that from
that's
consciousness.
Or the hamster in the microwave. Hey, look at me. I'm spinning.
If you donate enough, can you get them to delete things? Could you hey, tell you what, can you lose 98?
Just forget 98. Yeah. That's probably not a bad idea. All right, so check that out over there. Josh, what have you got for us?
You know what? Everybody likes to talk about the X570 motherboards. They're pretty good. They're interesting. They've got a lot of technology, but you know what? You can get a really inexpensive X470. And I got one of these for my kid, the Prime X470 Pro. Good power delivery, lots of features, good audio, all the things you want for not a whole lot of money. Now, 132 from Amazon, it's a little high. You can get it from other areas for less. But yeah, I mean, it supports the 3000 series of Ryzen's, and it's still fast. I mean, as long as you don't want to have PCIe 4.0, even though they could potentially support it, but you know, AMD is like, yeah, no. We didn't design for that. Could be crappy, but you know, otherwise, you know, X470s are still really, really good boards, good chipsets, good features. Not very much money anymore now that the X570s are out for like $600 for a motherboard. Yeah, it's not as common now because they've all been cut down in price, but still, 120 to 130 for a really good high-end motherboard. It's good stuff.
All right. So again, that's the Asus Prime X470 Pro, and we'll have the link there as well. We'll, as Josh said, it's the Amazon price isn't the best. We'll have a link probably to the other places you can find it as well. And I mean, as Josh said too, the Ryzen 3000 will work. Based on what we've heard, there's a good chance Ryzen 4000 will work on this board as well next year. So, you know, if you're in the AMD ecosystem, you don't have to upgrade those motherboards. You don't have to change chipsets every year like a certain other company.
Not nearly as much as what you have to do with Intel.
And you know what else? Passively cooled chipset.
Mm-hmm.
No chipset fan on X470. And yeah, you don't get PCIe 4, but chances are you're probably not going to use it. And PCIe Gen 3 M.2 drives are really fast. It's not that big of a deal.
Fast.
And X470, it has taken X570 until probably about the last month or so to finally be as reliable, to me anyway, as X470 has been with Ryzen 3000 processors. I'm saying, like, X570, my main test board is now, I will now pronounce it stable, basically ready to ship. But for the first 4 months, it felt like I was beta testing something. So 470 is a great way to go. But the only concern I would have at all is if you get an older stock board that has an old enough BIOS version that it will not boot with a 3000 series CPU. But any cheap Ryzen first or second gen would boot you up long enough to update. So that's the only caveat there. If it's newer, it'll be shipping with a recent enough BIOS that it will not be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Find a friend.
Yeah, find a friend with a Ryzen chip.
Doesn't AMD have that upgrade kit you can rent?
They do.
Yeah.
I believe they had that at launch.
It.
I don't know if that's a continuing program or not. That would be good. It is.
Good question.
Really, you can rent the chip to upgrade for the new one.
They would send you the cheapest compatible chip that would boot you, and then you'd do the BIOS upgrade, and then send it back. And I mean, that's how they advertised it. We haven't really tested that, but they were talking about that being an option.
Wow, that just seems so low tech.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
that's a
talk
sneaker
about
net right
sneaker
there.
net.
I mean, it works.
Exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
It's the downside of maintaining compatibility on motherboards.
Don't worry, we'll send you an old CPU that has minimal bent pins, but it will let you boot up
those
long
pins,
enough to do a BIOS update.
Yeah,
I'd be worried about those pens.
Destroy your motherboard.
Sebastian, let's. What have you got for your pick?
This is an easy one. Just the Blade Runner game we talked about.
Gotcha.
$8.99.
Go get it. Yeah, $9, and yeah, just save yourself the heartache of trying to get it running. Even if you went down the SCUM VM route and found a copy at a Goodwill for $5, it's still going to take you a long time to copy all the files off all 4 disks that you need. Just get this, and then you will own it for every platform. Check it out.
Let's see, 1.2 gigs. Not too bad.
Is that it? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Well, that's the show for this week. Any closing remarks? Anybody?
My first
It was a pleasure.
hard drive
Pleasure was ours.
20 megabytes.
Yes. And it came on a truck.
Oh no, Josh has gone back again.
Oh no. Hey,
My eyes are rolling in the back of my head.
I have a lot of old stuff on hand. like this Pentium
wow.
200 processor, still factory sealed in the box. In fact, this DX4 is still factory sealed. You can see it says
Jeez.
Intel Corporation on the plastic, if I can point at it. Yeah.
Mm.
I've got you beat on old tech, Josh, and I'm younger than you.
You do, especially
Your move.
unwrapped, because
Yeah.
And
I
your room's
actually
tidier.
unwrapped that stuff and used it as compared to
that's
you.
true. Yeah. I have the unwrapped stuff and the wrapped stuff. It's funny. People just want to get rid of this stuff, and I'm saying, give it to me. And I'm actually paying people for it on eBay and stuff. It's not healthy.
But it's,
No.
you know what though? That's the stuff that is disposable is the stuff that's the antiques of the future. I'm convinced that all this computer stuff's gonna be worth a freaking fortune because it's disposable. People just throwing it out. You know?
Yeah.
First gen
That's
Roomba,
exactly
it's gonna be
why.
worth a fortune.
Oh, for sure. I mean, even with all of your dirt and crud in it. That's just
even with
that's part
half
of
my
history
dog
right there.
stuck in
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Well,
exactly. Yeah.
It's the same thing. You know, you buy a Voodoo Graphics 10 years ago, and it was
Yeah.
$15. You go on eBay now, and it's now $100
Is it really?
because
Oh, yeah.
nobody is selling
Yeah,
their
easily.
Voodoo
Yes.
Graphics cards.
I better find out what the Newton's worth.
Yeah.
You
If-
better.
Old
That could
tech-
be your retirement, David.
There's definitely been a resurgence of that nostalgic throwback, tech and games, vintage gaming. In the mid, the earlier part of the century, people, it was all like, oh, what's next? What's next? Bigger, faster. And now we're getting to that midlife crisis nostalgic, like, oh, I got to have my 8-bit games. I got to have my 8086 and
Yeah.
original Voodoo, so.
I keep looking for a Commodore 64.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to. I don't know why. I don't know what I'd do with it. I don't even have that. I'm trying to have a monitor would even run on it anymore. I don't have the composite cables and stuff. Forget it. But yeah, just I have a Sinclair, the ZX
Oh,
Sinclair.
Yeah.
But only because it's my father-in-law had it at his place in England. So, sorry. As you can tell, I can obviously talk all night. So.
Well,
I'm chasing an Amiga 500. I will own one someday.
Oh,
but
yeah, there you go.
Can't imagine spending the 300 plus to get one, and then you have to have a monitor that works. And there's this small list of LCD monitors that'll do the 15 kilohertz refresh that it needs, and it's just this whole world that I don't even want to get into right now.
We have this thing called Kijiji. I don't know if you guys have that in the States, but
I've heard
Kijiji.
of
So
it,
I
yeah.
just bought. I have it's basically just lots of that kind. It's like an eBay almost, but it's kind of like it's almost like a low rent eBay. But one of the things that I had a search on for the other day was, well, I've had for months now. No, months, like almost a year now, for electric wheelchairs. And I finally got this beautiful, beautiful condition electric wheelchair for $150. They're like $7,000. I got it for like $150, and that's one of the things we're going to be playing with Tech Bandits this year. So yeah, because they can hurt themselves with that.
A lot of torque in those
robots.
motors.
Yeah.
Yeah, the torque on those things insane. It also weighs like more than most of the children. The thing's insane.
I can
Yeah,
imagine.
Bradley and I were like whipping up and down the alley on it. It's amazing. Anyway, there you go. With that image in mind. Good night, PC Per.
Canadian hospitals have Wi-Fi.
Drag
right?
racing.
That's true.
Yeah. So we'll come to you next from Toronto Medical Center. But
That's right.
Everybody, thank you, David, for joining us. If you want to check him out, check out thetechbandits.com, D Hewlett on Twitter. Any other places that they can reach you?
That's good. Yeah, we're all over the place. Twitch, all over there. Have a look.
All right. Well, thank you, David, for joining us. Thank everyone out there for joining us this week. We probably will not have like a live podcast next week. We may have something kind of just uploaded to the channel, but if we don't, if this is the last time we talk to you before Christmas and the New Year, everyone have a great holiday season, a good New Year. Be safe, be happy, enjoy your time with friends and family, and we'll see you in 2020. Take care, everyone.